Welcome to the Up Arrow Podcast with William Harris, featuring top business leaders sharing strategies and resources to get to the next level. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hey everyone, I'm William Harris. I'm the founder and CEO of Element and the host of the Up Arrow Podcast, where I feature the best minds in e-commerce to help you scale from 10 million to 100 million plus. The guest that I have today is Jonathan Sorkenn from the down and dirty streets of northern Bergen County, New Jersey. Cue the laugh track. At least that's what you had me right in there too. Right. That was pretty good. Jonathan Sorkenn has evolved from a successful commercial real estate consultant and investment banker to one of the leading corporate barter specialists in the media trade industry. A soccer dad and self-professed foodie, Jonathan has eaten his way across the country, helping major brands turn even the most challenging failed product launches, problematic excess inventories, and corporate real estate into incremental EPS, that is, earnings per share for those who are not in the financial world, and working media. And you were introduced to me by Ted Rubin, the brilliant social marketing strategist, best-selling author, and keynote speaker. Jonathan, I'm excited to have you here.
William, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here. Really excited to spend some time with you today.
Yeah, likewise. I do want to announce our sponsor quickly. This episode is brought to you by Element. Element is an award-winning advertising agency optimizing e-commerce campaigns around profit. In fact, we've helped 13 of our customers get acquired, with the largest one selling for nearly $800 million and one that IPO'd recently. You can learn more on our website at element.com, which is spelled ELUMYNT.com. That said, let's get on to the good stuff. The first question that I had for you, Jonathan, is, have you ever seen the show This Is Us?
I'm not a regular viewer, but I've caught an episode or two.
Okay. There's a character in there named Randall, and he goes to his daughter's like parent job night or whatever, where it's like it describes what his job is, and he's a weather trader. And he tries explaining this to sixth graders or something like that. I kind of felt a little bit that way when I first started talking to you. And I was like, wait a minute. So what do we call this? Media investing, media trading, corporate barter. Let me just start by saying, okay, Evergreen Trading. What is this?
You just hit it on the head, and it's one of the struggles we have in this industry. Media trade, corporate barter, media investment. It is a platform where a subset of the overall media buying market, a tactic and a program, partnership program that enables companies that advertise to turn redundant items in their supply chain. Those redundant items could be real estate, excess inventories, equipment, packaging, raw materials, anything redundant or impaired. So at a book value that's above the current liquidation value, we help those companies turn those items into incremental working media and effectively create incremental revenue. The EPS point we were talking about. It's it's tough to get down to that point, or it takes some time to get people to understand. But ultimately, where this tactic, this platform, this partnership program that enables companies to extract incremental value from expenditures they're going to make anyway, using stuff that's a challenge that no one wants to deal with as the engine for that opportunity.
Yeah, I remember when Ted first sent over the introduction, I looked at Evergreen Trading and my dumb mind was like, I don't know. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I don't get it, right? Then once you and I talked, I go, oh, everybody needs to know about this. This is a really, really interesting thing. So let me try to re-explain it in my own words and see it. Correct me if I'm wrong on this. Let's say that I'm an e-commerce store and I have a whole bunch of inventory that didn't sell. And maybe what I can do is, well, sure, I could just sell it for pennies, or I can wholesale it out or whatever. Or I can more or less trade it to you, sell it to you, and you guys would buy that excess inventory. But you guys also have like inventory of basically media that you have pre-purchased, like futures of media. So you're able to now have better rates on a lot of that stuff. And so you actually end up trading in your excess inventory for ad spend at a discounted cost.
You have a pretty good handle on it. So
Okay.
maybe what I'll step back a little bit. There's really
Perfect.
two sides of our business, right? So the first side is we use our balance sheet and we almost serve like a private bank to the media community. So media vendors, pretty much in all tactics outside of paid search and print, have different. That's where we operate. We deploy our capital. They have earnings challenges throughout the year, right? Because they're at the mercy of advertisers and their agencies as to when they buy that media and the type of media they buy. We might help an outdoor company solve some slow revenue challenges at the end of a quarter. But unlike a bank that wants principal and interest payments back, we'll take a call on their future unrestricted media positions, say over the next 12 to 18 months at a below market price. So the media vendor does this because they solved a problem today. And what they're doing is giving away a little bit of their future upside to solve that immediate problem. So now we, Evergreen, we have these positions. Unrestricted. The only caveat is if it's been sold to another advertiser, there's nothing we can do, nothing an advertiser could do working through their agency. So now we take this, knowing that we have this inventory or these positions, because it's really not specific inventory. It's not remnant in any way. It's completely unrestricted, like a call on this inventory across different partners, across different tactics. We talk to companies that advertise that have some type of impaired asset in their supply chain, like we spoke about. Mm-hmm. We will buy those items at a premium price, so above what that liquidation value is, better than what their other alternatives. And sometimes if they have a process that they're comfortable for, and most big companies do, they have a process for rationalizing excess or closeout merchandise, for example, we can put this as an overlay to that existing process if in fact they don't want us to get involved as a principal with the items. Either way, we're agnostic. So we overpay them effectively or give them an opportunity to recapture what otherwise would have been an unrecoverable loss, right? So if they had $1 million book value on some asset that they would liquidate for $250,000, we will pay them $1 million in a media credit, which is our dollar-denominated currency. They would use that media credit almost like a coupon to pay for a portion or settle a portion of their media invoices going forward. So effectively, you can think of it this way, that if it's a retailer that has excess sweaters or shampoo, whatever that happens to be, if they could convince their media vendor where they wanted to place their ads when the bill came to accept some of this shampoo or sweaters to settle a portion of the invoices, we wouldn't be needed. But that doesn't happen. So we're the conduit. We're the ones that enable that to happen. Does that, hopefully that starts, it's phase one of the demystification process.
It does. And I think this is why this is so brilliant, because this is a common problem for a lot of brands that they run into. And oftentimes they're looking at it, to your point, where they say, I don't have a whole lot of options. I have the option of liquidating it. That's not good, or, discounting or whatever they're doing. But this is not ideal situation. But this is a way to almost kind of turn that less than ideal situation into a different sort of win of sorts. And I think that you kind of worded it before to me as like, it's a win-win-win. Everybody wins in this situation in some ways. And I think that's a very interesting concept. What are the signs that you would say a brand would look at this and say, this is our time for us to start talking to Evergreen Trading about doing this?
Look, I think there's different economic cycles, right? In an up market, when everyone's doing well, and for whatever reason in the economic cycle, a lot of companies are bailed out of their bad decisions by a rising tide.
Totally.
Now, so they don't have to look to us because they feel, we're good. Plenty of people say that we're good. Where we are now, when there's some uncertainty, is there going to be a recession? Is this going to be a recessionary environment? Is it going to be a hard landing? Is it going to be a soft landing? Inflationary pressures, is it going to normalize? All these different factors. We would argue at Evergreen, the smart companies, the savvy individuals in leadership positions are mandating, look, everyone, all hands on deck to find every possible efficiency tactic. Now, a lot of companies can say that they're doing that, but not every company follows through with the actions. And one point I wanted to touch upon, and why this is maybe something you don't hear about on a very regular basis, it's tough enough to create a single win when you're talking to a new prospective company. Now we create ultimately, and I agree with you, a win-win-win. If it's tough to create one win, it's even tougher to create 3 wins across different areas of a company. So the marketing department obviously is very involved in our program. The supply chain or the asset holder or the real estate department, for example, if that's where the excess or where the problem lies. And then you have the finance organization typically that in a perfect world is a bridge between those 2 groups, because otherwise it's an incredibly obtuse relationship to try to link, but wait a minute, slow moving inventory and my brand spending to grow my business. Like, everyone's got too much to worry about and they don't want to get involved in everyone else's sort of business. But where this has been successful, somehow there's some, I don't know, and it's not an industry specific variable. It's just, we look back across our clients in this industry where there's been the most success. Every one of those companies, different types of assets, different types of media, it's someone in the organization, for whatever reason, grabbed onto this and really started to internally corral the different stakeholders and evangelize with us, because it was too important to let, oh, it's only $1 million. Oh, it's only $10 million. What's the big deal? If you can find that and extract that from existing expenditures and media, it's wonderful. So but the challenge is getting everyone to actually take the time from their day jobs, they're overwhelmed, their core priorities, to take some time to understand this.
Yeah. And I think that's very similar to just lateral thinking in general. I feel, a lot of times it's like you're so far in your little hole that it's hard to break out and see what else might be going on in these other silos. Take me through this. Let's say that I'm a $100 million D2C brand. And what's this scenario? Paint the picture for me. What's going through their heads as they're looking at their books? Who is likely calling this out most likely and saying, raising the flag, saying, okay, here's the issue, and how are we going to address that? Like, what's going through their head? What does this day look like?
In that example, $100 million DTC brand, we're probably going to be, or we're going to hope to get the attention of the CEO or the CFO or possibly the CMO. But I'm guessing at that size company, we're dealing in the C-suite, and there's a benefit there, because for that size company, they're probably not very decentralized. The C-suite individuals, it used to be that they would all sit in the same floor in adjacent offices, but even now, if one's in Los Angeles and one's in Miami and one's in Chicago, they're still centralized, right? And they're communicating. And if we have the opportunity to just have a conversation with someone who's willing to, honestly give us time to hear it out, it will resonate. But it's tough, like easier said than done.
Sure. What are some of the roadblocks or objections if somebody ends up at least having a conversation, but they say, nah, this isn't going to work for us? What are those things that they think are preventing people from moving forward with this?
Number one, and this was especially acute during the pandemic, where there was this incredible disparity, the haves and the have-nots of businesses. Some businesses boomed, record years for unanticipated demand. Others, for example, we were talking to a paper manufacturing company that was closing a factory, an old, obsolete factory before the pandemic. We were ready to do the deal. And as it turned out, the demand for pizza boxes skyrocketed during the pandemic, and they added extra shifts to this factory, and a deal didn't happen. So how do you get their attention? I'm sorry, if you could go back to the question. I know I've screwed this up.
No, it's just the idea of, what are things that block them from saying, I want to move forward with this?
Bandwidth is number one. The other thing is, it's too good to be true. It's almost, if they haven't experienced this, it's a little incongruous mentally, and there's this like cognitive dissonance. This can't work. Or I got an ad agency that handles my media buying on the media side of it. I'll outsource it to them. I don't need to do something differently. And then we get introduced to the ad agency, and the ad agency, even though many of the larger holding companies, they used to push back on this platform, but recognize that it really creates value. They've tried to maintain and become defensive and hold this in and try to do this themselves. We don't believe they do it as well, and it's important to work with one of the value propositions or points of differentiation is Evergreen as an independent player. We're not owned by one of the holding companies. We work across holding company clients, but they do try because they use it and say, if we can create, say, a 20% benefit on media through our investments, let's just make that up. The holding companies can probably create, I don't know, close to that as well if they follow the same tactics. But what they do is they don't pass through all the savings to their client and they use it as a margin enhancement tool. We just are too objective. We're trying to be transparent. We'd rather give more value to the client, and of that 20%, share most of it. Have a reasonable discussion. How much should be shared to you for value? What's a reasonable profit for us based upon our risk profile and making these investments to solve this problem for you? Again, Some companies just want path of least resistance. That's one of the big hurdles we have. This is fine. This is the way I've done it. But where we've had success, it goes back to that one individual, typically, in whether it's a marketing individual, a supply chain individual, a procurement person, or a CFO, and says, wait a minute, this is too important. No, I don't want single digit savings. I want double digit savings. And we're going to work through this and we're going to optimize our supply chain.
Yeah. And maybe you can't name companies. And if you can, even better. But if you can't, that's fine too. What's an example of somebody that came to you that you were able to solve this and clearly shows the win-win-win in that situation for them?
Yeah. Boy, do I have some stories. As you can imagine, because quite frequently the first time out, if someone's going to dip their toe in the water, they do some underwriting and they say, okay, how do we plan this or structure this initial deal? So if everything goes to hell in a handbasket, we really haven't lost. So it typically means starting off trading us something that, we talked about liquidation value where there's some liquidation value. Well, they might start out with something with no liquidation value. And we want to earn our seat at the table. And we were party to a very lengthy RFP process, which is not how it always goes, but a procurement-driven RFP process with a global retailer. I can't use the name. We won. We're very happy that we went through this lengthy process and were selected. However, once we won and we started talking to them about the assets and the process, we thought the companies that came in second and third were really the victors, not us. But they said, here's some signage, here's some old wooden planks that we used in some of the store fit outs. But we did it. But most importantly, it was, can you do my media? Can you execute the media in the same way that we would through our agency? Now, we just handle activation. We don't handle the planning and the strategy, nor do we set the rates. So what's most important is all those standards stay in place. We are buying what should be the same like-for-like media and allowing them to use some of that excess signage or wood planks to fund a portion of the media. And you earn your seat at the table. They see that it works. And lo and behold, that process and that partnership grew where we got a phone call at the end of a holiday season and they said, hey, this is really working. We got a big problem because now we're blessed, right? Now we're a proven partner. We're part of the strategic plan. It's the end of the holiday season. We've marked as much stuff down in the store base and online as we possibly can. We have no more room in the DCs and in the stores for the spring merchandise. Can you buy every remaining piece of merchandise throughout the North American store base? Wow. And we need it done in the next 45 days. Well, we did it. And it was, very significant, very successful, referenceable type, success. And we live for another day. But that's a lot of times how it has to work. That same company, before we got to the valuable product that we ultimately traded to an acceptable secondary market retailer that they wanted it to go to, but that
I was going to ask about that. What do you do with that? Okay, got it.
Well, the secondary market retailer, they were comfortable with, they would mark the labels so the product couldn't be returned to primary retail, but they were not going to pay the price. Normal process. But let's say they were going to pay $3 per unit. I'm making up a number.
Sure.
That wasn't acceptable, but that's what they were going to pay, and that's what they could afford to pay, and they're driving things. What we were able to do is take the $3 from the secondary market retailer and turn that into $10 per unit of media credit that the client could use to offset its, and that's what they needed. The $10 made up numbers is what they needed to, come out of this hole through the use of the media currency we paid them. That's one, but there's a lot of crazy stuff. That same company, in between the apparel and the signage, they had a division of one of their brands that had headless mannequins throughout their store base that were literally scaring some of their customers' kids. But it was a great idea at some point. Someone made the investment. We bought all the headless mannequins because they said it's a crisis. We have to replace all the mannequins with heads. They showed up at our warehouse literally like headless bodies wrapped in blankets with spare limbs as well. It was a pretty crazy scenario. So that's one story.
So then you sold that to an LA film crew for a horror movie, and
some of them we actually ended up donating to design schools, and a lot of the other pieces we try to stay, we try to be good corporate stewards relative to sustainability, and we broke it down into its components and recycled the metal, recycled the wood, recycled the plastic. Cool. But that's one. Another one that I just love as a story was a QSR, so a quick serve restaurant client that while they were renovating stores in the United States, they didn't want to lose the benefit of people coming into these stores while the store was being renovated. So they had these very large, almost like mobile restaurant trailers. They had a couple of these that they would pull into the parking lot and could at least serve a limited menu while the store was being renovated. Well, they had renovated their store base, and these two big restaurant trailers were just sitting, literally rotting in upstate New York in a uncovered parking lot. And they dipped their toe in the water. They saw the value. We actually started working on some media, improved ourselves first, and then they backfilled with these assets. They needed, I don't know, $500,000 was their original cost, let's say, for these 2 units. And we had to send people up there, make sure the hydraulics worked. I mean, put air in the tires.
Sure.
And then you have to arrange for someone to actually drive these out. And they're wide loads. So you need, you ever see those wide load cars with the flags and the flashing orange lights? We had to arrange for that as it went from state to state. We ended up selling it. This is the real fun part. We sold it to an individual who had a number of businesses or made all these arrangements and pulled these trailers out to California. They were retrofitted, so reskinned, updated, modernized. He put the investments in. And this individual had the right to set up mobile cannabis dispensaries at music festivals. So you talk about sustainability and turning an old redundant mobile restaurant trailer into a modern mobile cannabis dispensary. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, that's just the kind of thing that you think about. How do you fit all of those different pieces together? And that's, I think, where the geniusness of this comes from, because I wouldn't come up with that idea. I mean, that's a very complex
nor
thinking.
did I, and nor did we. But this is an industry that's been around for probably, 30, 35 years. It's definitely become more mainstream. It's less fly by the seat of your pants. It's more institutionalized. At Evergreen, we've been around 12 years, and we just try to focus on what we know we do really well, which is we're not trying to be the largest in the industry and do business with everyone. If we can keep a nice, successful stable of 30 to 35 clients and continually grow and make everyone referenceable, and even people, if we don't do business with them, if we become friends with them, that's fine too. And we hope that over time, by doing the right thing and not giving people a slow no, and actually, I know this is going to sound really crazy, doing what people ask you to do, or don't do things that people say don't do. And unfortunately, in a lot of business environments, someone will say, call me back in 2 weeks, and they're banging on the door the next day. We just try to take an appropriate approach, and it's more of a long game and doing the right things. Like your parents told you, say please and thank you and smile. I don't know. It doesn't seem like rocket science to me, but apparently in our industry, it is to some extent.
It is just in general. I think to your point, there's a lot of, I don't know, we don't listen very well as a society. Um, I don't know how to fix that, but I do think to your point where it's like, if you say, hey, 2 weeks, then it's 2 weeks. It's not a week later. Um, I tangentially here, I actually had Harley Finkelstein on the podcast as well, president of Shopify. And one of the things that he appreciated was when I had tagged him on Twitter about something. And I think he said, all right, reach back out to me in 2 weeks. And I added it to my calendar that said, all right, 2 weeks, right? And I put it on there and I sent him a screenshot right then and there. It said, great, it's on my calendar for 2 weeks. So one, he knows that I'm serious, but also he appreciated that. He said, all right, make it 3 weeks and you've got a deal kind of thing. And so, but to your point where it's like 2 weeks is 2 weeks, it's not tomorrow. It's not 2 months from now. It's 2 weeks, and I think that being able to follow through on that is a huge.
It's interesting. Not to give Ted Rubin a plug, but his whole mantra of return
Absolutely.
on relationship, it matters. And when I met him at a conference probably a little over 4 years ago for the first time, something I was moderating and he was the MC. It's right. It's just it's relationships. It's people. Yeah. It's going out of your way and actually doing something and not expecting something in return. I mean, I know that, again, that's crazy to some people, but
yeah.
I don't know. Life's too short, man.
Yep. So you called out something I think that's important also, that this isn't for everybody. You specifically said, not giving them the slow no, which means giving them the quick no. What's an example of somebody that is probably not the right fit for being able to do something like this,
Right.
Specifically within the D2C e-commerce retail space?
That's a fantastic question. So we try to have different qualifications, right? We try to bracket the ideal candidate. And unfortunately, it seems like you get the attention of companies that have massive problems in their supply chain. Oh my God, this company Evergreen can solve our problem. And God, we'd love to. But it's a company that either they're selling B2B, they're not advertising significantly enough to a consumer marketplace, or their entire marketing plan is, through Google and SEO and search. It's just not going to work. But if there's, as a general statement, if you look at the advertising and the marketing funnel, where we live best is mid-funnel up. It doesn't mean that we can't live mid-funnel down, but in a perfect world, we'd live mid-funnel up or, just below mid-funnel. That's where it's most impactful. That's where the greatest efficiency can be created. Although that continues to evolve. So if you asked us 3-4 years ago, it was probably only the top quarter of the funnel. And I'm guessing that in the next 12 to 18 months, we're going to be, pretty busy in that bottom third of the funnel as well, just because out of competitive necessity and as people's objectives change. It used to be people would buy their whole year, they'd lay down all their ads for the year at the beginning of the year, or even the beginning of the prior year, and put it on autoplay and then just go out to a lot of nice lunches. It's just not the reality anymore. So we have to be nimble. Our positions have changed. People used to buy linear video. Well, that's not just going to work. Now it's all the digital extensions or the CTV space. So from a DTC advertiser, a retailer that are active in those different areas, if they have problems, we can absolutely help them.
Yeah. And to your point, because this still exists more middle funnel, top of funnel, and I know you said you're getting into the bottom of funnel as well, but a lot of times I'd imagine that the stuff that you're able to buy up inventory of is more middle, top of funnel. And so if you're a brand that's not currently advertising in middle and top of funnel because you're just so focused on bottom of funnel, then like you spending on the top of funnel might not do anything for you because you don't even have the assets for advertising that. You don't know, you don't have your plan figured out. You're not sending people to the right pages. You're not saying the right things. Like it wouldn't be as effective for you. And so you might have gotten the media cheap, but you did a terrible job with it. And it just wasn't helpful.
We would never take something on if we weren't confident that it would work. It's just not worth it, right? The downside's too significant. But what you also find, and this comes back to like, why do companies resist, right? Why wouldn't they want to do this? Certain people historically, especially in the bottom half of the funnel, they're used to keeping their hands on keyboard in the programmatic space. something where, programmatic display, programmatically purchase video, that's all really fertile ground for us. But all of a sudden, if you look at the percentage of each dollar that's actually going to working media in that space, in many instances, it's not even 50%. Now, because of all the different layers and agencies that are controlling their clients and leading them around, they're what was it in, was it Meet the Parents, when he has Ben Stiller has the suitcase on the airplane and, it's like a death grip on his suitcase. Baggage well. They don't want to let that go. They don't want to let because it's the margin and the fees. So some companies, some brands don't care. They trust their agency. Working through us in that example, if you'll let our experts have hands on keyboard, we can increase that percentage of working media, the dollar or the percentage of the dollar going into working media pretty significantly. But boy, you're going into a hornet's nest. So I just throw that as a caveat. And look, everyone's allowed to make their own decisions.
Yeah, I think that was Ben Stiller. And I think that was exact quote was bomb, bomb, ba bomb, ba bomb, ba bomb, 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 something like that. Right. But yeah, to your point, agencies, that's an interesting topic because I know we talked about this a little bit, that sometimes agencies can be a roadblock to this. How is it, because you told me agencies shouldn't worry too much about this, that you guys play very well in the sandbox together. Why should agencies not be worried about this? How is this not disruptive to what their business is?
Well, it's interesting. We find that a lot of this comes down to if we have a strong enough client sponsor who recognizes the importance of the value we're going to be creating through this partnership, they communicate that clearly to the agency, that we have this new entity, Evergreen. They're going to be involved in this process. You are going to play nicely with them in the sandbox. And frankly, we feel as though we have we should have a joint fiduciary responsibility to our shared client. We're not always welcome with open arms and, they're bringing us meals and cookies. But that's emotional. It's an emotional dissonance. It's an emotional, oh my God, I worked so hard to get this relationship with this client. What's going to happen? But the other piece is if all of a sudden we're able to deliver additional value, which is what our model does, there's this insecurity and they wonder, my God, is my client going to think that I didn't do my job well? If all of a sudden, were we buying media inefficiently? What the smart agencies, what they realize is that, over time, what they don't realize is that these are two different business models. So if they're insecure and worried about us, making them look bad because we're buying media more efficiently, completely different models. We spoke about earlier in the conversation, us as a principal making investments versus an agency that's getting paid a fee for service. Now, what's interesting is over time, the savvy agency, since we don't take a fee, we deal with net dollars. So whatever fee arrangement is in place between the client and the agency, we strongly recommend that remains intact. The savvy agencies, and it takes a while, even if they were complaining in the beginning, they start to realize, wait a minute, I have the same revenue coming in, and I have this Evergreen entity handling all the activation, all the buying, all that iterations that my people don't have to do. I'm actually coming out ahead here. But that takes some time for that light bulb to go off in that realization. And when that happens, that supercharges this sort of three-party partnership between us, the agency, and the client.
Well, and let's just even say if you're an EBITDA-focused agency, then this is even better because not only is all of that other stuff true, but your client is now in a better profitability situation, which allows for more investment into other things that are going to help to drive up your better products, better ad creative, more money to be able to spend on good advertising. A lot of ways in which this can boost and improve that relationship there as well.
Yes.
What else should I know when it comes to Evergreen Trading and about just this whole media investing approach that we haven't already talked about?
I think we've covered a lot of it, but what I find really interesting is that it's people opening their minds. It's the willingness to try something differently. I sat down once, I remember years ago, with a very senior, powerful chief operating officer of like a Fortune 50 company. Nervous, dressed up in a suit and tie, which, and of course he's in there with a golf shirt and
Always.
plaques.
Yep.
He goes, "What's with the tie?" He goes, "I only wear a tie at a funeral or if I'm giving a college commencement address." Anyway, got right to the point. Why would explain the business model here? He was aware of it. Why wouldn't more people do this? And I said, for us, the biggest struggle we have in organizations is people in organizations, irrespective of what department they're in, believing that creating $1 million of incremental savings or revenue was meaningful. And he smacks his hands down on the desk and goes, "I've been fighting that battle my whole corporate career."
Sure.
So if you can get people to pay attention, it's like, like a penny per share of EPS, and that varies by the size of the company, how much revenue that is. We had a CFO of a large grocer who was one of our sponsors, who said to his marketing team, "I'm not going to make you do this, but let's just say $1 million was the number. It was probably much larger. We got a viable program here with your participation to create this incremental revenue which is a penny per share, and our stock is trading at a 18 multiple, which translates to, all this incremental enterprise value. And oh, by the way, that's how you're all compensated,
Sure.
ultimately with the incentive." You don't have to do it, but we're a penny's business when it comes to margin. And if you don't do it, how many extra heads of lettuce through your marketing campaigns are you going to get people to buy for us to make an extra nickel a head of lettuce to get up to this incremental penny per share? The eyes go wide, and all of a sudden, we're going to give this a try. And it turned into a very significant, long-standing relationship. So you got to try something different. And it brings me to a point when Evergreen, we were redoing our website 5 or 6 years ago, and we all put a quote out there. And you mentioned that I'm sort of this self-professed foodie. You can see that I'm not gonna waste away missing a meal. Anthony Bourdain. So many people listening are going to know who he was.
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, left us too soon. He had a quote, and I'm going to read it. And it says, because it's relative to food and culture and opening your mind and experiencing different things. And I think it's very appropriate for our business because you have to get people to think differently. It says, "Without experimentation, a willingness to ask questions and try new things, we shall surely become static, repetitive, and moribund." So I just think that's the case. And in this business environment, companies that are not willing to do things differently, and they all say they are, and we've mentioned this earlier, they have to try new things. They have to have some type of innovation program. And it's tough because it's not just that one party. It's bringing everyone together. How can they coalesce around this solution and at least dip their toe in the water or try it? We're not asking for a long-term commitment. This isn't, you're locked in for years and years and years. We want to earn our seat at the table. We're passionate. We believe it works. We know it works. But people have to open their minds and be willing to allocate a little of their bandwidth to better understand the program.
Yeah, that's great. And like you said, this is a really interesting approach to solving other problems in the business. And I think it's at least worth exploring. You talked about Anthony Bourdain, though. And so this is a good time to transition into the personal section of who is Jonathan Sorkenn. Because if I understand correctly, tell me why I'm going to sing this song. Every move you make, right? All right, you know what song this is, right? I'll be watching you.
Every breath you take.
Yeah, every breath you take, every move you make. I'm butchering it, I'm sure.
By my favorite band of all time, The Police.
Okay, so why am I singing this song talking about Anthony Bourdain? How does this relate to Eric Ripert?
Okay, so Eric Ripert, as someone who follows food, and I credit this to my late father, who always did the cooking in the house. So like growing up, holidays, company, he was doing all the food, food preparation and menu creation. And I mean, literally printing out menus for people coming over for Thanksgiving, when my mother did the more mundane daily cooking for us as kids growing up, right? I took on that and adopted that. And now my son has actually followed in my footsteps, and he's blown me away. He's like a sushi master with he and his fiance. The stuff he does and the omakase sushi he puts together is unbelievable. But anyway, Eric Ripert, the chef at Le Bernardin in New York, I've been fortunate enough to be there, to eat there a couple times. Just so wonderful. I love seafood. Eric Ripert and Anthony Bourdain were very close friends. That's the connection. And unfortunately, Eric Ripert was the one that found Anthony Bourdain when he, at time of his untimely death in France. Eric, I was at a food conference, a restaurant finance conference in Las Vegas a number of years ago. I knew Eric Ripert was going to be speaking, so I was really excited just to attend the event and his session. And as I'm with one of my colleagues and we're, in the hallway of one of the big hotels in Vegas and having a sandwich or something, I see Eric Ripert walk by. I bolt. I literally run down the hallway into this conference room and find him at the front to pose for a picture and tell him what a wonderful person he is. He just came out with an amazing book called Seafood Simple. I'm not getting paid for this plug. It's just a wonderful, simple for him compared to, Michelin 3-star chef at Le Bernardin in New York City. And we posed for a picture, the nicest, most genuine, down-to-earth individuals. Just wonderful experience with meeting Eric Ripert.
But here's the thing. This is not a one-time thing for you. Why does this ring a bell now when I'm going on the same topic?
So one of the few times I remember, I think I was flying on it was a holiday Monday in January or February. Maybe it was President's Day, and I'm flying for meetings on Tuesday in Los Angeles. And again, one of the few times I was actually upgraded on a flight, maybe because it was a holiday. And I'm in the front of the business class section. The plane lands in LA, and we're going to deplane mid-door, so the first row has to go back. And there's all this commotion behind me, a few rows behind me, and people posing for pictures. And I'm going, oh my God, this is unbelievable. Who could this be? And it's this two men, and one of them looks Asian from behind. Yeah, he looks Asian. And I'm getting this inkling, like there's someone famous here, like someone that means something to me. And lo and behold, it's George Takei.
I love it.
Sulu from Star Trek, who became almost even more famous through his interactions with Howard Stern and the Howard Stern Show. And he's with his partner, his husband, Brad. They get off the plane. They're walking down the concourse at LAX. I have to wait to get out. Everyone's taking their bags down. Again, I'm running down the concourse at LAX. George, Brad, oh my God, you're great. You're great. You're great. I'm a big fan. And we posed for a picture, and I even got the oh my. It was wonderful.
Oh,
yeah,
that's good.
I'm a nerd.
No, that's good. As long as you don't start chasing me down the hallway here too. No, I'm giving you a hard time about it. George, yes, definitely became famous, obviously from Star Trek, and then through some of the Howard Stern stuff too. My favorite thing though is just seeing him play himself in the show Psych. So I'm a big Psych nerd, like such a big nerd, like that.
There you go.
Literally even the Psych phone case, and so I know he played there a couple of times too. And
he is such a good sport. And that was really fun. I mean, now again, I'm a nerd. That was pretty cool. Cooler than even when I was very young, flying in college, flying up to Boston, and there's a woman, they cleared out the first row of the, at that time, I think it was the Pan Am shuttle before it was the Delta shuttle. And this woman is sitting there with her feet up on the bulkhead, shoes off, reading the New York Post. With the big glasses, it's Jacqueline Onassis.
Oh, nice. That's fun.
That was pretty cool back in the day. Anyway, just some extra stories.
So we've got another story here too. You were telling me about a fun road trip story with the Special Forces. I don't want to spoil it anymore, but
well, yeah. So one of the things about we and our business dealing with companies in different industries, they're located in different places. We don't typically break out by geography or even industry because it's all about the uniqueness of finding an individual who will grab onto this. So we travel domestically a lot. We see a lot of the country. And as in the intro, we sort of eat our way across the country. So there was one particular trip. We were going from one city in Texas to another. And it's almost like a goof. It's like, how many different things can we try? We started on the way back to this airport, onto the airport. We found what was supposed to be the best gas station taco joint in this part of Texas. I mean, literally, I think the guy making the tacos was like changing oil in someone's car, prior to washing his hands. It looked like he washed his hands, or at least he rubbed them, wiped them with an oily rag. The most amazing tacos.
I love it.
Fantastic. Get back in the car. And at that time, we were trying to do business with another QSR in Texas. People are familiar with Whataburger, the orange triangle. I had never had a Whataburger. So let's go try Whataburger. We go into Whataburger. First, we're going to split one. We end up getting our own. They got all these wonderful condiments and side dishes. We have a second. So now that's lunch number 2. We get into the airport.
It's like Frodo and Bilbo Baggins here, right? You're going to end up with
it was out of hand. And again, look at me. I'm a slob. So we go in and now this was early enough where in the Northeast, Chick-fil-A had really not expanded and covered the market. Living in the Northeast, you don't get a lot of Chick-fil-A. It's a special treat. Of course, there's a Chick-fil-A in the airport that doesn't have a long line. So we got to get a big thing of chicken nuggets at least. So we do this. My colleague who, big, I don't have to worry about security who's around. He's been in the special forces. He's a wonderful individual who we're very close and have had some great stories and successes together. Well, we've eaten all this food, and somehow I guess my constitution was a little stronger than his. He goes, dude, I have to get to the bathroom. There's going to be otherwise they're like immediately, the sweat starting to break out.
We've all felt that too.
Yeah, exactly. So
such a brutal feeling.
And it's not the fun. Well, it's kind of funny, right? If it's not you, but he goes into this. So I'm waiting with the bags and, outside the men's room at this airport. He goes running in. 5 minutes goes by and I see him coming running out, hysterically laughing. So somehow this, whatever just went on, settled his stomach and overcame this, emotion and the sweating. What the hell happened? He couldn't spit it out. So apparently he goes in, all the stalls are taken. They're all closed. He thinks one is just the door's closed, but no one's in it. He grabs onto it. He's a strong dude. He gives it like this Mongo, like from Blazing Saddles, yank. Rips the door open. There's a guy in there, pants down at the ankles, trying to go to the bathroom, going, what the F? What the F? My friend closes the door, trying to get out of there, just horrified. Well, he had broken the lock. The door swings back open. The guy's going, what the F? What the F? He's jimmying the lock. He finally gets it, locked enough. And that's when he came running out hysterically. And while he's trying to tell me the story, the guy that was in the stalls coming out, now humiliated and horrified, covering his face, just trying to run by. So that's one of the road stories. We have better road stories, but that's the byproduct of trying to have 3 lunches in one day.
I love it. You have to be careful about that. We've all felt that feeling. And there is something though about the hole in the wall restaurants where you're willing to take your chance on it because it's so good. It reminds me, not nearly as good of a story as yours, but it reminds me of I was in this marketing company and flew out with the CEO and the national sales director to a trade show. I think it was in Vegas, but don't quote me on where we were. And I love Indian food. It's my absolute favorite. And we go to this hole in the wall Indian restaurant where the way that they were serving like water from the back of the table was like a hose. You could see the hose coming from the back of the restaurant to the front of the restaurant. You could see, the extension cords coming from the back of the restaurant to like service the front of the restaurant. And I look at this and I'm like, this is my kind of place, right? Food was amazing. The CEO at the time that I was working with, though, I don't know why he asked this question, but he asked him, he was like, hey, who are you voting for in the election kind of thing? And the waiter gave the best political response I've ever heard given in a way that's just completely not offensive. And he said, well, right now I am Democrat, but when I make a lot of money, I'll be Republican. I thought that was a really great. There you go. That's a great answer. Way to dodge the question.
Yeah. So it's funny when I pride myself, some people like the fancy white tablecloths in a restaurant and, the valet.
I like those too.
Yeah,
I like that restaurant too.
The valet parking, which I find especially pretentious if you're at a suburban shopping center with big, but whatever. for me, it's not about the rating on ambience and service. It's about the quality of the food. And with my family, they've been horrified, and colleagues horrified sometimes when I'm going, we have to eat here. We pull up and they look at this place, to your point, they go, I'm not going in there. And we go in there and it's the most amazing experience because it's the quality of the food. It's something local. It's something ethnic. It's wonderful. It's finding some unique type of food and the unique dining experience in some out of the way location. And that I just think makes it even better.
I am absolutely right there with you. I also wanted to talk about Soccer Dad. So you've been coaching, reffing for 15 years. Tell me a little bit about being the Soccer Dad.
Yeah, I think I was of the generation of an age that, soccer, first generation, right? So if you were born in the US, your parents they didn't play soccer growing up. So soccer was new. I mean, I remember when I was probably 7 or 8 years old playing soccer for the first time. It was the first year they even had a soccer program, a rec soccer program. And that was around the time of the North American Soccer League. So the Cosmos and Pele, which at that time it was the best players were all basically washed up players that had played in other countries coming to the US for a swan song because Warner Communications at the time owned the Cosmos and was an investor in the North American Soccer League. So they threw all this money into it. So that was, the early heyday until it went bankrupt because it couldn't support itself. So I grew up playing soccer. That was my sport. Was recruited to play in college. Sort of got burnt out. Didn't play, but some of my best experiences were soccer. And when we had kids, got involved, right? Because everyone has to volunteer, and if there's not enough volunteers, nothing's going to happen. So started coaching.
So true.
That led to coaching even in a travel program. We had professional trainers who knew much more than me. That was always good. And ended up running a local travel soccer club. So I did that, got on this league board. So there's a league in northern New Jersey and southern New York. I don't know, we have about 1,500 teams, 80 different clubs. And it's not the top level, and it's not the bottom level. It's sort of that middle 60% kids who want to play in high school, some of which might go and play in college. So I've been on the board, volunteer gig, got my referee license when I was coaching because I felt like there were referees that didn't know what they were doing. So I wanted to know the rules. So if I was going to yell at them and then ultimately get yellow carded or sent off, although rarely sent off as a coach, more as a parent, but that's a separate conversation. I wanted to know the rules so I could at least challenge them with the facts. So I do that for fun, and I do to give back. And you come full circle now that my kids are older. They all played through high school. They played high level. All three of my kids ended up playing soccer in college.
Cool.
It's just a wonderful life. And that whole travel soccer and other sports, it's people who have kids playing travel basketball or baseball or whatever the sport is, lacrosse. You go to tournaments across the country. Those parents and their kids become your social circle because you're literally living with them with this shared passion. And I would do it all over again. I mean, it's over for me now. But I would keep doing it other than being on the board and reffing and trying to give back and take a different approach as a referee of yet not yelling at people to put your foot in the ground about your authority on the field, but rather let me try to educate you a little bit. You got to calm down.
Yeah,
you're a little over the top. And I'm telling you that because that was me. I get it. I was over the top, and it's a big problem we have in youth sports these days is parents getting really crazy and abuse of referees, abuse of coaches. And frankly, unfortunately, the things that parents say to their own kids. There are the whole thing called the Sideline Project out of the DC area, really trying to educate parents that it's about the kids and just as adults, let's shut up. We're trying to do the right thing.
I'm right there with you. My daughters are starting travel volleyball, which has been a lot of fun. The first year that they're doing travel volleyball, and that's been just like you said. It's you're hanging out with these people a lot more. It's a lot of fun to be a part of that. Basketball was my sport. I didn't play volleyball, although I do love volleyball now. But I can remember the first year that my daughter was old enough to play basketball, and I stepped on that court with her, and it's like there is a little bit of a flood of emotions and everything that comes back over you. It's just like this is my domain. Like, you will be the best, right? And it's like, okay, wait, settle down.
Yeah.
She's 6, let's just play. Like, let's just have some fun. See if she can actually even, get the ball in the hoop at all. But
well, as long as it's still their passion and they're having fun. We always said to our kids, the first day you don't want to go to practice, it's over. Because we're not going to force you. And expose them to different things and it doesn't have to be a sports passion. I don't care if you're playing the violin or you're in dance or gymnastics or playing a sport. Let them follow their passion. And
be a chef.
Yeah, it makes your life or a chef. It makes your life a lot easier when your kids are having fun. Someone told me once, if you have multiple kids as a parent, we are only as happy as our least happy child.
Heard that.
Right?
Absolutely true.
So.
Yeah. Jonathan, this has been absolutely amazing talking to you today.
Likewise. Thank you, William.
If people wanted to work with you or wanted to follow you, what's the best way for them to get in touch or stay in touch?
They can find me on LinkedIn. They can find me through Ted Rubin because Ted Rubin seems to have the biggest social following of anyone I know. But LinkedIn or the evergreentrading.com website, really, it's really been a pleasure, William. Thank you very much for this experience. And if there's anything I can do for you in the future, you let me know. I'm here for you.
I love it. Thank you very much, Jonathan. And thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thanks.
Thanks for listening to the Up Arrow podcast with William Harris. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.